A few weeks ago, I went for a drive to clear my head. I often do this after tight deadlines as a freelance graphic designer. This time, I thought I'd take the back roads through rural Oregon. It was normal at first. I filled my tank about 10 miles back. The sun was setting, filling the sky with orange and purple hues. As I cruised down the winding road, I noticed the dashboard lights flicker. I glanced down and saw the fuel gauge dropping quickly. I felt my stomach drop. I wasn't far from a gas station, but I felt like I was miles away. I pulled over to the side of the road with my heart racing. I got out of the car hoping to calm myself. The wind rustled through the trees and I listened closely. It was eerily quiet. The pines loomed over me, casting long shadows. They seemed normal, but something felt off. I sat for a minute, trying to shake the feeling. Finally, I turned on the engine. The gauge shot back up a little. Maybe I had misread it. Over the next few weeks, the same thing happened each time I drove. I ran out of gas. My heart raced as I spotted the gas station in the distance, but the gauge kept plummeting before I got there. One night, I saw a figure standing among the trees, just far enough to be unclear. I blinked, and it was gone. I felt uneasy. Things escalated. I started hearing whispers whenever I parked. They came from the woods, soft and low. I couldn't understand them. I shook my head, convincing myself it was stress. I thought maybe I should avoid those roads, but I was drawn back. On another night, I pulled over again. I heard the whispers clearer now. They felt like they were all around me. I turned and saw that figure again, closer this time. I forced myself to look away, telling myself to drive. My heart raced and I felt frozen. Then it spoke. I couldn't remember what it said, but I knew it felt wrong. I gripped the steering wheel, desperate to leave. I looked out the window one last time. The figure was watching me. I slammed my foot down on the gas, racing down the road. Each mile felt like a victory, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being chased. After reaching home, I thought I was safe. But even now, I can't relax. A part of me believes something is still out there. I reached out for help, but it didn't ease my mind. I turned around one final time, and there it was. The figure stood back in the shadows, just watching me, waiting. I felt cold inside, unsure of what it wanted or what it would do next. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to shake the image of the figure from my mind. I reached for my phone, hoping the screen's light would offer some comfort. Scrolling through articles, trying to find explanations for my recent experiences, I stumbled upon a forum dedicated to strange happenings in rural areas. My heart raced when I read about others who had similar encounters. I wasn't alone. The following day, I decided to take a different route, one that veered away from the woods altogether. Maybe distance would help. I climbed into my car, taking a deep breath as I started the engine. The familiar sound of the engine soothed me, but the unease lingered in my chest. As I drove, I tried to focus on the passing fields and farms. I even rolled down the window, letting the fresh air hit my face. I needed to believe it was all in my head. Yet, a small part still worried I might see that figure again. I mentally shook it off, convinced it was just my anxiety, not some supernatural force. I turned onto a gravel road, hoping the dust and dips would provide a change of scenery. It was peaceful at first. Birds chirped and the sun shone brightly. That was until I noticed something strange. The road stretched into darkness ahead, and it felt like the atmosphere shifted. The whispers returned, faint and distant, weaving through the air like a barely there breeze. My heart raced again. I took a deep breath, willing myself to ignore it. But the whispers grew louder, swirling in my mind until I could barely think straight. I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the figure. Instead, the road was empty, but unease settled heavily in my stomach again. Then I saw it. Something out of the corner of my eye. A figure darting through the trees. It was fast and fleeting, but I felt its gaze on me. I gripped the steering wheel tighter and pressed down on the gas pedal, willing myself to speed away. Just as I was about to turn back onto a main road, something happened. The engine sputtered and the dashboard lights flickered again. My heart sank. It couldn't be. I was barely a mile from where the figure had first appeared, and now my car was losing power. The whispers intensified, racing through the air, filling my ears with unintelligible sounds. I pulled over, panic clawing at my chest. The trees surrounding me felt alive, pressing closer as if they were closing in. I reached for my phone, but of course there was no signal. No one was around to help. I was completely isolated. And that's when I saw it. The figure emerged from the trees, stepping into the fading sunlight. This time, it stood still, watching me, and the whispers turned into a low, rhythmic chant. I was frozen, fear rooting me to my seat. I fought the urge to scream. What did it want? I didn't know if I could face it, but there was no choice. I needed answers. I summoned every ounce of courage I had left, determined to confront whatever was haunting me. I stepped out of my car, heart pounding, ready for whatever came next. I took a shaky step forward, the gravel crunching under my feet. The figure remained motionless, its features obscured in the dimming light. My heart raced, but I felt an odd pull, as if it wanted me to come closer. Each step felt like a challenge, my instincts screaming to retreat, yet curiosity clawed at me. The air grew heavier with the whispers. They weren't just noises anymore. They felt like words, pressing against my mind, urging me to listen. I paused, instinctively tilting my head to catch something I couldn't quite understand. I whispered back, "What do you want?" Silence enveloped me. The figure tilted its head, and for a brief moment I thought I saw a flicker of recognition in its hollow eyes. Then it raised an arm slowly, pointing toward the woods behind it. My breath hitched. Was it beckoning me? Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I fished it out, desperate for some connection to reality. But the screen remained blank. No signal, just darkness. I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. I was stuck here, facing something I couldn't comprehend, with no way to reach out for help. The figure stepped back into the shadows of the trees, dragging my attention toward the woods. I hesitated. I knew going in would mean stepping deeper into this nightmare, but part of me felt drawn to it. I was tired of feeling helpless. I needed to take control. With newfound determination, I moved closer to the tree line, my fingers brushing against the rough bark. In the distance, I noticed a faint glow, a flicker of light weaving through the branches. Was there someone else out here? My instincts warned me to turn back, but that light pulled me in. The whispers grew softer, almost curious, as I crossed into the thicket. Every rustle in the leaves made me pause. My heart pounded in rhythm with the echoes in my head. I pressed forward, shadows dancing around me. When I reached the glow, I could see it was coming from a clearing. As I stepped into the open space, my breath caught again. There, at the center, was a weathered altar covered in symbols I couldn't recognize. Small offerings lay scattered around, trinkets and bits of string nestled in the dirt. I felt a shiver run through me. This was more than just a strange sight. It felt like a place of power, something ancient and significant. I took a step back, fear gripping me. Then I noticed it. A dark shadow forming at the edge of the clearing, growing larger, morphing into the figure I had seen earlier. Suddenly, everything shifted. The energy in the air coiled tight, and the whispers turned chaotic, racing in a frenzy. I turned to run, but before I could get far, the figure spoke. Its voice was like the whispers. "You are not meant to turn away." Panic surged through me. I stumbled, backing away, but my feet wouldn't move fast enough. I needed to escape, but the trees loomed closer, blocking my path. With each step, I felt the pull of the altar, the weight of the figure's gaze burning deep into me. Then the ground shook beneath me. The altar crackled with energy, swirling shadows surrounding me. I felt the fear bubbling over, nearly swallowing me whole. Just as I thought I would be consumed, everything went dark. In that moment of chaos, I realized I had walked into something far beyond my understanding. The figure had more to reveal, and whatever truth it held was waiting for me to discover. I needed to find a way out, but first I had to confront it again. I jolted awake, lying flat on the cold ground. My body ached as if I had been tossed around. I blinked, struggling to remember what had happened. The clearing was empty now, the altar before me, appearing harmless in the dim light. I stood up, brushing dirt from my jeans, my heart still racing. Where had the figure gone? I felt like I had been pulled into a different dimension, or worse, some twisted dream. But I was wide awake. The air was thick, heavy with the remnants of whispers that faded but lingered just out of reach. I turned to look around, searching for any sign of movement. My pulse thumped in my ears, drowning out every sound. I took a few hesitant steps back toward the altar. This place was charged with something. I needed to understand it, to know why I was drawn here. Suddenly, a flicker caught my eye. A movement in the woods beyond the clearing. I squinted into the shadows, but all I saw was the same dark expanse. Then I heard it, a soft, low hum, like a distant chant. It resonated in my chest. It felt familiar, yet unsettling. Instinctively, I took a step closer to investigate. The humming grew louder, urging me to follow. My feet moved almost on their own, pulling me deeper into the woods. The trees thickened around me, blocking out what little light remained. I felt like I was being swallowed by the darkness, but the sound kept me steady. Then I saw it. A small figure moved between the trees, cloaked in shadows. My heart raced again, adrenaline flooding my veins. Was it the same figure from before? Was it another presence? I hesitated, feeling a strange mix of fear and intrigue. I called out quietly, "Hello?" The sound echoed into nothingness. The figure paused, then towards me. I could barely make out its form, but it was different this time, less menacing, almost curious. Slowly it approached, stepping into a dim patch of light. That's when I saw it. The face was not just a shadow anymore. Eyes glimmered like distant stars, and it wore a strange, serene expression. "You've come to learn," it said, its voice echoing through the trees. "Learn what?" I replied, stunned. My fear was still there, but I found myself trying to understand rather than flee. "What is this place?" The figure gestured back toward the altar. "It is a doorway, a bridge. You have been called because you are needed." Needed for what? I felt a heaviness settle in my stomach. Each answer raised more questions. "The balance," it said. "You will understand soon." The figure stepped back, fading once again into the shadows. The humming stopped abruptly, leaving silence in its wake. I stood frozen, processing the weight of its words. A doorway. My mind raced, recalling the altar and the whispers. What balance? What had I stepped into? As uncertainty gripped me, I realized that the energy surrounding me had shifted. Whatever was happening, it was building to something I wasn't ready for. Then I heard it again, the low hum, returning, more insistent now. The ground began to thrum beneath me, urging me to move. Before I could gather my thoughts, the woods erupted with energy, and the branches around me shook violently. I had only moments to decide. I could run, retreat back to safety, or I could step forward into whatever truth awaited me in this darkened world. My heart pounded as I weighed my options. The figure had said I was needed. What would happen if I ignored that call? As I took a deep breath, I stepped forward, ready to embrace the unknown. The moment I stepped forward, the humming surged, wrapping around me like a living thing. The trees thrummed with an energy I could feel deep in my bones. I felt drawn to the altar, an undeniable urge growing stronger with every beat of my heart. But the surrounding darkness pulsed with expectation, as if the woods themselves were holding their breath. I approached the altar cautiously. My fingers grazed its rough surface, and a spark shot through me, igniting something primitive and latent. I dropped my hand back, startled by the jolt. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting the hooded figure to reappear, but the woods remained quiet, shrouded in shadows. The hum intensified. It transformed into a melody, both haunting and beautiful. I closed my eyes and listened, letting it wash over me. It felt like a call to something greater than myself. I opened my eyes again, and instinctively, I reached for the symbols carved into the stone. As I traced the lines with my fingertips, the air shifted. A flicker of light burst from the altar, illuminating the clearing in harsh contrast. I stumbled back, squinting against the brightness. Shapes began to emerge from the light, echoes of memories or visions I couldn't tell. I saw people, their faces twisted in confusion, eyes wide with fear. Then they were gone, replaced by a rush of images, a child laughing, a storm raging, and then darkness. I gasped, staggering.
Away from the altar. What were those images? They felt like fragments of lost stories, and I couldn't shake the feeling that they were connected to me somehow. The weight of those glimpses pressed against my chest, urging me to remember something. Before I could collect my thoughts, a chill swept through the air. The shadows thickened, and the light flickered, fading like a candle struggling to stay lit. Panic clawed at my insides. I glanced back at the altar, willing it to reveal more. Just then, the chanting returned, louder now, a cry cutting through the woods. My heart raced. I could hear footsteps, heavy and unyielding, approaching fast. Fear consumed me. My first instinct was to run, but I had come too far. I faced the shadows, desperate to confront whatever was coming. Then I saw it, emerging from the darkness. A shadowy figure, similar to the one before, but larger, its form indistinct, shifting like smoke. "Balance must be restored," it intoned, its voice a blend of the whispers and the hum. I felt its presence closing in, an aura of power and danger that made my skin crawl. "What balance? What do you want from me?" I yelled, though I was unsure my voice would carry. The figure paused, and the forest seemed to still. "The door swings both ways," it replied, each word steeped in meaning. "You must choose." Before I could respond, a blinding flash erupted from the altar, and the weight of the shadows pushed against me, threatening to consume everything. My vision blurred, but I could still feel the call of the light, urging me to step forward, to embrace whatever awaited beyond. I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to flee. I had to know the truth, even if it scared me. With determination igniting my resolve, I took one step closer to the altar, ready for whatever was about to unfold. But before I reached out again, the earth shook beneath my feet and everything went dark. I don't know how long I was out. When I opened my eyes, I lay on the cool, damp forest floor, the smell of wet earth filling my nostrils. Panic surged through me. I jolted upright, my heart racing. The altar was gone. In its place, a patch of flat earth marred by faint scorch marks. Had I dreamed it all? I pushed myself to my feet, brushing dirt and leaves from my clothes. My mind raced with questions. What had just happened? I remembered the chanting, the shadow, and most of all, that pulse of light. I needed to get out of here, but escape felt harder than simply walking away. The woods around me were alien, twisted branches creating a menacing silhouette against the dim light filtering through the leaves. I turned in circles, trying to find my bearings. The pathway I had followed earlier wasn't visible anymore. It felt like the very essence of the woods had shifted while I was unconscious.
Then a noise cut through the stillness, the snap of a twig nearby. My pulse quickened. I wasn't alone. Straining to hear, I caught another sound, a soft whisper carried on the wind. "Choose," it breathed, wrapping around me like a chill. My breath hitched. I took a hesitant step forward, scanning the trees for a sign of movement. "Hello?" My voice sounded small and shaky in the vast emptiness. "Is someone there?" No answer came other than the rustling leaves. Just then, my foot caught on something, a hidden root twisted around a stone. I stumbled, but managed to catch myself. As I regained my footing, the ground shifted beneath me again. A low rumble echoed, vibrating through my bones. I froze, waiting for something to happen. And then I saw it, a glimmer far off between the trees, a light flickering like a candle. Should I investigate? My instinct screamed at me to leave, but curiosity pulsated through me, urging me closer. I took a few hesitant steps toward the glimmer, then paused. The chanting swelled again, more desperate this time. "You must choose," it echoed, and my heart sank. I didn't understand what I was choosing or the consequences of that choice. I hesitated, caught in a web of confusion. Suddenly, something moved in my peripheral vision. I spun around to face whatever lurked in the shadows, but found nothing. Just the oppressive stillness of the forest, broken only by my shaky breaths. Just when I felt the urge to turn back, the light intensified, illuminating a clearing ahead. It was strange, almost inviting, and I felt compelled to press forward. But as I took a step closer, I remembered the shadowy figure's warning. What balance did it speak of? Then I saw it again, that shadow looming, larger than before, watching from the darkness. Panic gripped me once more. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, voice laced with desperation. Its voice slithered through the shadows. "To restore what was lost." Before I could react, the ground convulsed again, and the light blinked out, dragging me into an enveloping darkness. The last thing I heard was the echo of my own voice, swallowed by the void, begging for answers I may never find. I woke up gasping, air rushing into my lungs as if I had surfaced from deep water. The darkness closed in around me, thick and clammy, a mist that felt alive. I instinctively pressed my palms against the cold ground, trying to gather my thoughts. Where was I? Was it night or day? I couldn't tell. Slowly, shifting shadows began to materialize around me. I braced myself, squinting against the inky blackness. Then, suddenly, a figure emerged. It was tall and shapeless, painted in the deep hues of dark night. My heart thundered again. I wanted to scream, but the sound was stuck in my throat. "Let me guide you," it rasped, its voice like leaves rustling in a strong breeze. I felt something pull at the edges of my mind, as if it were trying to tug me closer into its depths. "Why?"
I managed to ask in a shaky whisper. "What do you want?" "Answers lie ahead," it replied, still fixed in place. I didn't want to trust it, but a feeling, almost magnetic, drew me toward the figure. Its presence felt like a promise of clarity wrapped in a blanket of dread. I hesitated, then took a step forward. The ground crunched beneath my feet, snapping me back to reality. "Wait, you're not real?" I shouted, the words spilling out before I could stop them. My voice echoed, but the figure only stood there, unmoving. Then, without warning, the air shifted like a tide, and the shadows began to swirl around me. Panic surged again as I felt weightless, as if I was being lifted. I cried out, but the sound vanished into the void. "Help!" I shouted, refusing to succumb to fear. Suddenly, the pull stopped. I blinked and found myself back in that eerie clearing from before, the flickering light now blazing brighter, illuminating the trees around me. Sunshine filtered through the branches, slowly pushing away the darkness. I felt disoriented, but the warmth on my skin felt reassuring. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient tree, its bark twisted and gnarled. But what caught my attention was something nestled in the roots, a small round object glowing softly. It looked like an orb, shimmering with faint colors that shifted and danced. I stepped closer, drawn in. As my hand reached out, the whispers returned, a cacophony swirling through the air, all chanting, "Choose, choose, choose." My heart raced, the chant echoing in my ears. "This is what you want?" I asked the shadows, but no answer came. I couldn't ignore the pull of the orb. It felt safe, almost familiar. But what if it came with a cost? Just as my fingertips brushed the surface of the orb, a shrill sound split the air. It was a scream, a cry of agony that pierced through the forest. My heart sank as dread seeped back in. The darkness wasn't gone, it was only waiting. I turned, scanning the edges of the clearing. What was that? My voice trembled, fear flooding back through me. Then I noticed movement, figures emerging from the trees, pale faces and hollow eyes drawn towards me. They stepped forward silently, and I could see their hands reaching out, almost pleading. Each face twisted in anguish as they formed the circle. I stumbled backward, all thoughts of the orb vanishing. I had to get away, but where? The edges of the forest loomed closer, shadows wrapping around me, sealing off my escape. That's when I realized I was deep in the heart of something I didn't understand, and whatever this place was, it wasn't going to let me go. Desperation clawed at me, and I realized I needed to act, and fast. "Let me out!" I shouted, but the figures only advanced, eyes glimmering with a desperate hope. I could feel the weight of their intent pressing down on me. A choice loomed before me, heavy and suffocating, and I was running out of time. My pulse raced as the figures moved closer, their hollow-eyed stares boring into me. Instinct kicked in, and I turned on my heel to flee. But the dense trees loomed over me like guardians of the forest, warping their shapes to distort my path. I sprinted forward, the ground beneath me uneven with roots and stones, making every step a struggle. "Stay back!" I yelled as I glanced over my shoulder. The figures mirrored my movements, their frenzied pace unyielding, a silent swarm driven by torment. Their hands stretched out, fingers clawing toward me, urging me to come closer. Then a faint glimmer caught my attention. A narrow path breaking through the thicket, its edges lined with wildflowers and soft, inviting light. It felt like an invitation to safety. I hesitated, eyeing the gathering shadows behind me. But desperation propelled my feet toward that sliver of hope. As I barreled down the path, the air grew cooler, a crispness washing over me. I fell through moments of silence, the screams from before fading to a distant echo. But my heart still raced, catching snippets of whispers, half-formed voices calling my name. "Don't look back," I told myself, pushing on. As I rounded a bend, the path opened up into a sun-drenched meadow, the brightness almost blinding. The contrast to the dark forest was jarring and somehow calming. I came to a halt, panting heavily and searching for the figures, but they didn't follow me into the open space. I tried to catch my breath and gather my thoughts. It felt too peaceful here, almost suspiciously so. I looked around, noticing splashes of color and the sweet scent of blooming flowers. But as I took a step forward, my foot brushed against something cold. I looked down and saw a small stone engraved with strange symbols. Just then, the ground trembled beneath me. A low rumble seemed to rise from the earth, vibrating through my bones. I knelt, clutching the stone, feeling a warmth radiate from it. Questions raced through my mind. Was this a sign? Was it connected to the orb? To the figures? The tremor intensified, and I spotted a dark cloud gathering on the horizon behind me. I stood up, heart pounding again, as the peaceful meadow turned tense. I could sense something immense approaching, something primal and far more threatening than the figures. As my hands tightened around the stone, the whispers surged again, louder this time, crashing like waves against my ears. They all spoke at once, and though I couldn't understand the words, one phrase pierced through clearly. The price. Just as I raised my gaze to the gathering storm, shadows rushed back into the meadow, and I felt a sudden rush of fear wash over me. Whatever was coming, whatever.
I realized I had a decision to make. That was when everything went dark. I woke up in darkness, confusion swirling around me. The ground beneath me felt damp, like I had fallen onto soft muck. My instincts kicked in again, and I pulled myself up to sit. I rubbed my eyes, trying to get my vision to adjust. As the spots faded, I realized I was not in the meadow anymore. The air was thick and musty, as if I'd been plunged into a cave. I could barely see anything around me, but faint outlines of rocks and shadows loomed nearby. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing uneasily in the silence. No answer, just the slow drip of water somewhere in the distance. I couldn't stay here. I needed to move. Gingerly, I rose to my feet, my heart racing again as I recalled the whispers and the dark cloud. Were the figures still after me? I felt the stone in my hand and clutched it tightly. It felt almost comforting, like it was absorbing my fear. As I took a step forward, a soft glow began to emerge ahead. Hesitating, I focused on the light, a promise of something. Curiosity pulled me closer. The glow intensified as I approached, revealing an archway of jagged rocks glowing a deep blue. I felt drawn to it, as if it were calling my name. I stepped through. Instantly, the atmosphere shifted. I found myself in a hollowed-out chamber, the walls shimmering with the same blue light. Panels of rock etched with symbols similar to the stone I found surrounded me. They pulsed gently, a rhythm that matched my heartbeat. "What is this place?" I asked aloud, but my voice faltered against the silence. My fingers brushed against one of the symbols, and I felt a surge of heat course through me. In an instant, visions flashed in my mind, a landscape of swirling colors, and a glimpse of the figures, their faces twisted in agony. And then a figure stepped into view. It was a woman, draped in shadows, eyes glowing like embers. She reached towards me, but her mouth moved without sound. A sudden fear washed over me. Was she trying to help or warn me? I jerked back, letting out a gasp. "What do you want from me?" Just then, the ground shook violently again. The walls vibrated, and I heard that ominous rumble growing louder. The symbols on the walls began to flicker and fade, and dread filled the space. I didn't have much time. My instincts kicked in again, and I sprinted toward the archway as the chamber buckled. I didn't dare look behind me. Whatever was coming, I had to escape. I burst through the archway and stumbled into another path, but it led straight into darkness, swallowing me whole. And that's when I saw it.
A figure moving toward me through the blackness, the same hollow-eyed stare burning into my soul. I gasped, backing away. Heart racing. This time, there was nowhere left to run. I squeezed my eyes shut and spun around, ready to bolt in the opposite direction. But my legs felt heavy, as if dragging me into the shadows. The figure moved closer, the air thick with an electric tension. My breath caught in my throat, and I clenched the stone tightly, as if it were a lifeline. "Choose," it whispered, not the soft hum I had heard before, but clear, a single command that pierced through the darkness. The word ghosted through me, resonating with a truth I couldn't comprehend. "I can't," I shouted back, my words bouncing against the cavernous walls. "What is there to choose?" Desperation mixed with anger surged through my veins. I wanted answers, but the figure simply stood there, waiting as an ominous presence that took my uncertainty and fed on it. Then a flicker of light caught my peripheral vision, shimmering faintly through the inky blackness behind the figure. My heart leaped. It was another orb, similar to the one I had nearly reached before. It pulsed with energy, beckoning me, calling me to make a choice between the light and the looming darkness. "Choose," the figure repeated, stepping even closer now, shifting in and out of focus. I could see emptiness in its eyes, a deep chasm that promised unending despair. I swallowed hard, the weight of fear growing heavier on my chest. I had to choose. I could confront this entity, press forward into what it represented, relinquishing my freedom. Or I could seek the light, take a chance to escape this suffocating realm. I glanced back toward the orb. If what I'd seen earlier in the meadow was anything to go by, the light might hold the key to breaking this cycle. Summoning my resolve, I took a step toward the orb, feeling the warmth emanating from it. It was like stepping into sunlight after weeks in the dark. The figure hissed, its shape warping as if in pain, urging me to reconsider. My heart raced as I closed the distance. Just as my fingertips brushed against the surface of the orb, an earth-shattering roar erupted from behind me, the darkness convulsing as the figure lunged forward. I yanked my hand back and stumbled, feeling the ground tremble yet again. The force of the sound brought me back to reality, and instinct drove me to escape. I just needed to reach the light. I threw myself toward the orb, my body propelled forward by a mix of fear and desperation. As I neared it, the whispers became a chaotic symphony, crying out in desperation, leaving me dizzy with uncertainty. "Choose! Choose!" they clamored, filling the space, urging me to make a decision. I could feel the shadows closing in, clawing at me as I made one last push toward the light. "Let me go!" I screamed, and in that moment, it fell silent. The air crackled as I pressed my palm against the orb, collapsing into its warm glow. The world around me ignited in blinding light. I felt myself being pulled, as if gravity itself had shifted. The orb enveloped me in a cocoon of warmth, blasting away the darkness that had cloaked me for so long. But just when I thought I was free, just when I believed I could breathe again, the pull stopped abruptly, and I found myself standing at the edge of the woods from where it all began. Home. The back roads of rural Oregon stretched before me, bathed in a soft golden sunset. But everything felt different, intangible, as if I had crossed through a layer of reality and back. I turned, half expecting to see the figure emerge from the shadows once more. A rush of cold air fanned against my back, and the woods loomed larger, whispering still. I hesitated, searching the depth of the tree line, but there was nothing. Only the fading echoes of the whispers lingered in my mind, a reminder of choice. I stumbled back toward my car, heart still racing, knowing I had escaped, but not understanding completely what I had left behind. As the engine rumbled to life, I glanced back one last time at the dark embrace of the forest. A shadow flickered at the edge, and though I couldn't see it clearly, I could feel its watchful gaze.
I drove home, uncertainty weighing me down, forever altered by the enigmatic choices of that night. Had it been real? A trick of the mind? I didn't know. The darkness still whispered, and I knew whatever forces existed within those woods would always be lurking, waiting for the next moment to reach out. I moved to a different city soon after. Sometimes I ponder what truly happened back there and what came of that figure, the shadow in the woods. But mostly, I try not to think about it, even as the whispers occasionally haunt my dreams. Because deep down, I realize the choices we make leave more than just scars. They can open doors we never intended to find.